"How, my name's Max," and we're constantly being lied to. Denying this is pointless. It's supported, for example, by a study conducted by psychologist Bella DiPaolo that a person averages from 1 to 2 lies a day. Moreover, a paper by Kennedy and Cray from Vanderbilt University and University of California states men lie more frequently than women. This problem was faced by the ancient Chinese as well, and they came up with an antidote: rice. They would put rice into one's mouth and ask questions. If the rice was dry, the person was lying. But trust me, if you find yourself woken up in your bed in the middle of the night with rice in your mouth and being asked questions, that's not the worst case scenario, because in Europe in the Middle Ages, on your tongue would be put a red-hot iron, or you would be boiled in a cauldron. Your choice. And everyone around was sure that the innocent would withstand pain, because they would be protected by divine intervention. An interesting method, testing it is something we of course won't be doing. In 2011, a very interesting study with Australian police came out. Many officers are confident they can detect lying. Most favor a focus on nonverbal behavior, even over available evidence.
You know, Mr. Kent, I really don't need a polygraph to tell me I'm being lied to. I can see it in the eyes.
I know a guilty man when I see one.
Follow-up research in 75 different countries and 43 different languages shows law enforcement officers are not alone. People all around the globe believe lying is accompanied by specific nonverbals, such as gaze aversion and nervousness. Because it's true. Really. Not a chance theory. Let's turn to the experts. Every study conducted since 1986, when famed researcher Paul Ekman first addressed this, has demonstrated that we humans actually are just as likely to detect deception as to guess if the next card in the deck is red or black, namely 50-50. And this is confirmed by a very cool dude, for 25 years an FBI special agent and supervisor in counterintelligence and terrorism, Joe Navarro.
While it's true that a very few people are better at detecting deception than others, they're barely above chance. In fact, those that are really good are correct somewhere around only 60% of the time.
I have a feeling you wouldn't like them sitting on a jury judging you.
To increase it at least a bit, one has to have expertise simultaneously in
anthropology, criminology, sociology, jurisprudence, sociobiology, neurobiology, psychiatry, psychology, anatomy around the fingers, communication, zoology, ethnography, primatology, linguistics, language, grammar, to name a few. But there sure are people who know everything. TikTokers, your parents, judges. Judges? Joe Navarro has listened to jurors' post-trial comments that they thought a witness was a dickhead and bullshitting because they had heard somewhere that if you touch your nose, you're lying. Wow, this is analytics, I understand. I'm even afraid to imagine what can happen if one's butt happens to itch during a trial. Terrorist! Execute the fuck out of him.
Your Honor, that's the prosecutor.
So every time Judge Judy of TV fame says, "I know you are lying," I know that's cringe AF, but you better not say that to your judge, because unlike us, they are covered by judicial privilege in saying what they wish. The rest of us would be sued for slander. Joe Navarro conducted an experiment and from the archives took a sample of 261 DNA cases, where the suspect's DNA wasn't at the crime scene. So in all of those cases, all of the investigators and the prosecuting attorneys couldn't detect the truth. They weren't just 50-50 wrong, they were 100% wrong. And if that weren't bad enough, in fully 1/4 of these cases, the individual gave a false confession.
It's a funny thing about abuse and a coercive environment. In time, most people, even the innocent, will yield, and so they admit to crimes just to make the interview process stop.
But everything changed in 2008 when an Indian court adopted a lie detector test as evidence to convict a woman who was accused of murdering her fiancé. It was the first time a lie detector result was used as evidence in court. Let's start with the fact that this name is fundamentally incorrect because this machine cannot detect lies at all. The real name is polygraph, and surprise, surprise, it has nothing to do with lies. From Greek, polygraph translates as right a lot, and this is important. It's a machine that records many things such as breathing, heart activity, and so on.
Have you ever dreamed of kissing your brother? No. All right.
At first glance, everything's very simple. You're being hooked up to a lot of wires, ask questions, the lie detector starts screening you and gives out an appropriate reaction.
This is a simple lie detector. I'll ask you a few yes or no questions and you just answer truthfully. Do you understand?
Yes.
It was developed in 1921 by California police officer John Larson and enhanced by Harvard psychology student William Marston. And what's most funny is that this same person came up with such a superhero for DC Comics as Wonder Woman. A very unusual connection, but it does exist. The lasso of truth is Wonder Woman's weapon. It forces an enemy to tell the whole truth. What an interesting reference.
Mr. Chang, state your name.
Benjamin Franklin Chang, ready to deal out the truth. Nothing to hide. Let's do this.
Have you ever masturbated in the study room?
Everyone describes the polygraph as a super precise invention capable of recognizing lies and truth. In episode 93, devoted to the lie detector of the US science show Mythbusters, it said that polygraphs are correct 98% of the time.
Good, because I got a hot date tonight. Odd date. Dinner with friends. Dinner alone. Watching TV alone. All right. I'm gonna sit at home and ogle the ladies in the Victoria's Secret catalog. Sears catalog. Now, would you unhook this already, please? I don't deserve this kind of shabby treatment.
On top of that, the polygraph is on the Encyclopedia Britannica's list of the 325 greatest inventions, on websites that are sold from a couple of thousands to
$300.
And it stated that there can be no error at all. Aldrich Ames worked in the CIA counterintelligence division, but was leaking information to the Soviet Union for nearly a decade. So taking polygraph tests, he was openly lying, but the test revealed nothing. Got caught only because he was living way better than his 70K salary allowed. Later he said he wasn't worried. Okay, that's a spy, they're trained for this. But then, what about the following? Gary Ridgway, a truck painter, killed prostitutes one after another. Got caught, but was only a suspect. He easily passed the polygraph test and was dropped as the main suspect, only to happily go on and kill 44 more. Meanwhile, another innocent suspect failed that test, so the test went cold, and only after 17 years, the breakthrough came in when advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine the old evidence. Charles Cullen, a nurse, also the angel of death, injected patients with lethal doses, while doctors were sure the deaths were due to natural causes. After his first victim died, he was considered a suspect, but passed the polygraph test, which showed that he was innocent. He got released and charged only 10 years later after giving at least 39 more lethal injections, until one of his co-workers noticed unusual behavior. Cullen was accessing medical records of patients who were not under his care.
To look at you, I'd swear you were being evasive, but the machine says you're clean.
I'm just a little nervous.
But I can explain this too. Maniacs pass because they are psychopaths, they just don't care. The well-known Edward Snowden declassified NSA information also passed the polygraph with no sweat. There are many such examples. Is the polygraph to blame? Obviously yes.
I'm guilty. Guilty.
But in fact, no, because it only records some measurements. Whether they're interpreted as a lie or truth is up to a polygraph examiner. It's a person who sits at the apparatus and delivers the final verdict. Could they be to blame then? More on this later.
Mr. Nadir, state your name.
I'm Nadir.
Have you ever 9/11 anyone?
But the fact is, very serious questions are asked there, like,
did you ever commit an act of espionage against the United States?
One of the most common questions in the security screening. You and I would definitely not pass a polygraph test even if we're used to lying left and right because we'd be very nervous. This means even if you're innocent, you will still be accused. Where do such conclusions come from? In 2003, the National Academy of Sciences published a report stating that if there are 10 spies among 10,000 people, 8 of them would be caught. You identified almost all the liars, only together with these guilty ones you would also accuse an additional 1,598 innocent people. And how to find the real guilty from these guilty ones, imprison everyone. But that looks more like a witch hunt. By the way, that's exactly how Senator Sam Ervin put it. The National Academy of Sciences itself says that the use of polygraphs is unreliable, unscientific, and biased. In harsh reality, the polygraph gives the correct result only about 60% of the time, which is much less than claimed. It's like 50-50. That is, this complex technique yields a result only slightly better than a coin toss. And this is what the Supreme Court and renowned polygraph expert David Lincoln say.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Why then does everyone around believe this machine? It's simple. The mass media leave no other choice. On Dr. Phil, lie detectors. On the program lie detectors. In series and movies too.
Now, these aren't 100% accurate, right? They're...
Well, you'd be surprised how accurate they are. They can tell fairly easily if someone's lying or not.
CIA interrogation specialist Cleve Backster once accidentally conducted one very unusual experiment. He connected the lie detector and it showed that the subject was calm. He took out a match as a sign of danger and the polygraph needle jumped. Only the subject was a plant. Baxter was so convinced of the legitimacy of a polygraph that he quickly jumped to the conclusion that a plant could read thoughts, feel fear and pain. He even wrote a still popular book about it. What the hell does that mean? That the polygraph recorded anything but not what was needed, because the very idea of feelings in plants is unscientific and not recognized by scientists. Since plants don't have a nervous system, connect an artificial woman to it and it will show something. But this is not certain and doesn't need to be checked. And relax, plants don't feel pain. Yes, you can continue to beat nettles, although plants do feel damage and communicate this to other plants through their roots, like here is you. And something more, the polygraph itself cannot catch you in a lie. It's an experienced or inexperienced polygraph examiner who does that, a human, and they can also make a mistake. Although digital scoring algorithms to score polygraph charts were created in the 1980s, they failed to catch on, which means polygraph examiners make their assessments by feeling intuition, and it's largely subjective. To a tricky question posed to you, your body might react belligerently. And might not. It can differ radically among individuals, or even the same individual under different circumstances. You killed 50,000 people in Africa. What? Of course not. I haven't even been there. Oh. Have you been to Africa? I'm telling you, I haven't. Check the stamps in the passport. Holy smokes. Do you have a passport? Of course I do. Well, I haven't seen such a neglected case before. You're an idiot. Probably overheated. Minister of Internal Affairs of Belarus, Igor Shunevich, has forced all employees of the State Highway Patrol to take a polygraph test. Every third failed it and got fired. Every third was corrupt, or was it just that the polygraph made a mistake every third time? Shunevich said, the margin of error can be up to 5%, and I can sacrifice this part. But you and I know that the margin of error is much larger, and his words can be interpreted like this. The innocent will be punished, but I somehow don't care. It'd be so funny if Shunevich himself took a polygraph test and turned out to be disloyal to his own self. But from taking it, he of course refrained. You imagine that the United States, the picture is better. Imagine, disimagine. Jimmy Williams. His attorney was so convinced of his innocence that he stipulated that the results of a polygraph test should be admitted into evidence. He failed it and got convicted of rape. He'd been in prison until the raped victim came forward and said she told her mother she'd been raped, only after she found hickeys on her neck that'd been made by a 12-year-old girlfriend. Well, that's understandable. A little girl was afraid her mom was gonna spank her in her little ass. How cute. No one is bothered. There is an innocent man sitting in jail for over a decade. And it's all because people believe the lie detector. You slit your wife's throat. Yes, I got sick of her. She'd been complaining to me about me 24/7, and I just went and...
But the lie detector says no.
Innocent. Case closed. Next. But that's what Jeffrey Deskovic could only dream about. Although, no witnesses, no evidence whatsoever, but a failed lie detector, and because of it, a coerced false confession. 16 years, and would be sitting even longer if by pure chance the post-conviction DNA testing with newer technology hadn't proven Deskovic's innocence and identified the real perpetrator.
You have arrested an innocent man!
Really? Oh, jeez. All right, Colossus, you're free to go.
He was released and compensated $10 million.
Yeah, I am the Alpha Omega, Black Flag Swanger.
Scientists do not accept his coercive aid to interrogators lying somewhere on a scale between a rubber baton and a diploma on the wall behind the interrogator's desk. And as National Geographic put it, it relies on methods and interpretations that involve more craft than science. Either way, polygraph expert David Licken says the charts come out hopelessly muddy, except to examiners who believe they found something. So first and foremost, you must understand that your polygraph test is actually an interrogation. But unlike criminal interrogations, the government denies you the right to have legal counsel present. And your mild-mannered polygrapher is a trained interrogator to whom a confession is like a trophy. Says former FBI Special Agent Mark Mallah, the examiner has a strong incentive to say, "I got an admission. This person was deceptive." After all, when you sit down and sensors are being attached to you, you're being said, in case you will lose your job, family, and go to jail. And anyone that has actually been in a security interview will tell you that you walk out of it thinking to yourself, shit, maybe I am a terrorist and just didn't know. They seemed pretty convinced. So is your heart racing because you're guilty or anxious about being falsely accused about the topic? Simply being attached to one can be enough. May I go? If lie detectors were completely accurate, criminal cases would be solved within minutes. All I can call it is a fear detector.
You really have to calm down.
Why the fuck should I?
You'll fail the test.
Fail the test? What is this, middle school? Of course I'm gonna fail the test. Test's a goddamn farce.
And actually, it hit me how to deceive the polygraph. You start breathing heavily, working yourself into a state and tell the truth. And the lie detector gives out that you are lying. This way, lies and truth switch places. The FBI's top expert in polygraphy, Dr. Drew Richardson, says that anyone can be taught to beat a polygraph in a few minutes. One can beat the side of one's tongue, solve math problems in one's head, or think about the Roman Empire. There is no way you can get away from this. A lie detector will get everything out of you. We all know you're the boss of the mafia. It's written on your badge. Are you the boss of the mafia? No. I do not like onions. And that works. All right, I'll give a more illustrative example. This makes your palms sweat. Reproduce this, or better your own experience there, and it will generate some massive electrodermal responses. In fact, with a little bit of practice, you'll be able to control every tracing on a polygraph chart. It will. And this is said by famous former Oklahoma police officer Doug Williams. In 1986, CBS staged a theft of a camera during their worker shift and called a polygraph exam company to conduct an interrogation. And what do you think? They identified an employee named Paul as a culprit because he was deceptive when answering questions. Well, what can I say, Paul?
Jail time.
Polygraph testing has been the gold standard, but it's obviously fool's gold, says Professor Steven Finberg, chairman at National Academy of Sciences. Whereas John Deutsch, former director of the CIA, is sure, quote-unquote, the CIA's reliance on the polygraph is truly insane. The irony is that the very inventor of the polygraph spoke about the device's uselessness in court, the disregard of the century. That's why this kind of sorta maybe detector is considered the most controversial tool in legal cases. Somewhere it's considered evidence and somewhere not. New Mexico, for example, allows routine admission of polygraph evidence. In Texas, lie detectors are not admissible in criminal trials. In Florida, Georgia, and Nevada, the test can be used if everyone agrees to it. However, sooner or later, criminals will be dealt with.
This world is rotting, and those who are making it rot deserve to die.
Nowadays, polygraphs are often used in large companies where theft is likely. And Melissa Littlefield, a professor at the University of Illinois, says whether the tests work is beside the point in the first place, as the polygraph is used to give the investigator a certain aura of superpowers to read the suspect's thoughts and simply to scare into confessing. There have been examples of people duped into coming clean while hooked up to a box with green and red lights on it, and even to a copy machine. It's the idea of the device. A number of other technologies have been developed that promise to make the polygraph all-powerful. But as the United States Congress says, these all singing, all dancing, brain-reading, lie-detecting devices simply don't work. And Joe Navarro is dumbfounded by how many people are convinced that these machines actually do. Today, in many companies, the HR department handles hiring. And there sit psychologists, polygraphologists, and other mindfuckerologists. As a result, good writers and smooth speech makers are handling development and creation of technology, while a good turner and an engineer load boxes at the port.
All right.
Have you ever taken a train and eaten it piece by piece after you just derailed it with your penis?
Yes. It was for charity. It was a charity event. I was
All right,
raising
enough. Wow. Congratulations, you got it. You got the job.
Oh, great.
Welcome to Shoe Court Shoe Store. You'll be working in the women's athletic department.
That's how it is. Don't trust a lie detector, a gut feeling, or even me. I'm just a regular human and I can make a mistake too. That's why I always put links where I get the material from down in the description below. Double check. Only hard evidence.
Have you ever sub-botted?
Are you serious? Have you seen how many subs I've got? Of course not.
When is a new video coming out?
Very soon. I'm already editing it.
Finish him!
My 146 subscribers! They're not my subscribers. They're my loyal friends, and they're already searching for me. They will find and save me. Fuck!
Actually, we kidnapped you to make a McDonald's ad.